this may sound ludicrous, but we had no plans, absolutely no plans. We would take an area that needed something, whether a little patio or planting, and started to work with that. So it's kind of working with nature and try to enhance it if it's all possible. GATOP stands for God's Answer to Our Prayer. I didn't give that name to this place, but the people I bought it from had that name, and it came about because they moved here from Chattanooga in 1941. And before they moved here, one prayed that they would find a place that they would see mountains, and the other prayed that they would see water. It overlooks the Tennessee River and the Great Smoky Mountains. So we had the water and the mountains. So they were overjoyed and said, that's God's answer to our prayer. So that's what GATOP stands for. I thought that was a good name, so I kept it. I grew up in the Bronx and never saw a tree. This is sort of a culmination of a dream I had when I was 8 years old, a long time ago. We were living in the Bronx, and my father, who was an attorney, took me one Saturday up to Chappaqua, which is a suburb of New York City. And the client he was visiting, when we got there, was riding on a tractor. And it was a big expanse with no other houses. And I was entranced with it. And also the number of dogs running around. And so before I left, and again, I was 8 years old, I looked around and I said, when I grow up, I'd like to find a place that I cannot see anybody, that I have a lot of dogs, and the house would be made of wood. And that's what exactly happened. It's amazing that the dream came true. I came in June of 1966 and thought at that time I was only going to stay for 2 years. So here it is, more than 50 years later, I'm still here. After I came here, I established a large research program involving cancer and blood diseases, and that expanded. I had the opportunity to go to other universities, but after finding this place and living here for a period of time and getting to love the area, love the people, they couldn't pay me enough to move somewhere else. You know, the nature of the work with patients with cancer and, of course, their families can be very stressful. And so without really realizing it, GATOP became a place for me as a refuge to leave some of those terrible situations behind and just focus on the land and whatever we were building or planting. I would often get wonderful ideas as I'd be working or planting or doing something. An idea would cross my mind that related to the work or patients and so on. So it was an interesting thing that it was beneficial to me and then eventually to the patients or to my research. And I would get into the dirtiest work, and with some of that equipment and so on, your hands get pretty dirty and under your nails, and it's almost impossible to clean it no matter how you scrub. And it was kind of embarrassing to examine patients with hands like that. One of the things that's really satisfying about this gardening or the work that we do, usually at the end of the day, you could see what you've done. Most jobs that we have, at the end of the day, you really can't see whether it made much difference. But here, if you plant something or build something, you can see it. So it's very satisfying in that way. Having a place like this to work outside really was very, very rewarding, and also kept me in good shape. By good fortune, I met a man who worked at the hospital who worked on the side in outdoor projects. There was a need of steps going down from the top all the way down to the bottom, and it was very hazardous. There were really no regular steps. So I asked him about it, and he said yes, he could make those steps. So he started to work with his grandson on Saturday mornings. And after a couple of weeks, I watched it. This looks awful interesting. I said, could I help on that? He said, sure. And so that started my main career as a stonemason. Because when people ask me what I do, I said, I'm a stonemason, but my hobby is medicine. And so over the years, we gathered ourselves, several of our co-workers, about 800 ton of rock, brought it here over years, and then used that to lay walls and patios and ponds and so on. And we have a great love for rock, great appreciation for it. There are a number of sculptural pieces here in stone, stainless steel, bronze, and so on, copper. That interest, I think, came from my upbringing in New York City. My parents lived across from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I would love to see the works there and so on. For some reason, got really excited about frogs as a sculptural element or humorous element. And years ago, we visited the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. And interspersed in the garden were these large copper frogs, almost life-size. And these frogs were playing violins or drinking champagne or doing all kinds of things. And they were really humorous. And so we acquired several of those and got more and more into frogs. And so when people come here, as I say, especially the kids, one of the challenges I say is, how many frogs can you find? And of course, they're all the artificial, so-called artificial frogs, but many live frogs sitting on the ponds or whatever, and so they're all excited about how many they can count. And to watch the kids run around is really exciting. You see them climb on these boulders and so on. It's a wonderful play place for them.
So we got the map.
It's always been I guess, a pleasure for me to welcome garden clubs that come. And it's interesting to see people's reactions. Some, kind of walk through very quickly, like if you go to a museum and some people just kind of walk through. And other people stop and study and look at things. And a few people sit, because to really enjoy a garden, like, you can't just kind of walk through it. You have to kind of sit. It's like hiking in the Smokies too. You have to sit and smell and hear and taste the place and just become part of the land. This garden not only is a refuge, but also it's an educational resource, a way of learning and appreciate nature, and maybe some people want to know more. They'll see a few wildflowers and they wonder what it is and then become more interested in it and so on. People are amazed, not realizing that this is in Knoxville or that close. And one adjective that I hear over and over again is the word spiritual. And people say there's a spiritual feeling here, a holy feeling, or healing is the other word, a very healing place to sit and just listen and be quiet.